Welcome back. This is Playing Voodoo, and today I'll be going over Australian Survivor Heroes vs. Villains Episode 7 recap. So typically, early on for the first two episodes of the week, I recap my 5 favorite moments of the episode. However, I think with what went down this episode, it would be a disservice to give 5 favorite moments. So rather, I'll just be going through and recapping what went down in the episode and giving my thoughts about what happened and what will possibly be going down moving forward. I will start off by saying in the preview that we did, Alex and myself specifically, I know that I said this. I was upset that they were doing a Heroes vs. Villains season so soon. They just had All-Star season a few seasons back, and they've only had 2 seasons since. So where are the returning players coming from? However, you do this season because of George. Yes, you do a Survivor Heroes vs. Villains season because of George. And boy, did George shine in this episode. So we'll get to what went down because most of the episode was Tribal Council. But I want to start off just going through the episode chronologically. So I want to note that Jerry is now maybe, hopefully, part of the Spice Girls with George, Liz, and Shawnee. George being Scary Spice, Shawnee being Posh Spice, Liz being Sporty Spice, and Jerry being, from Liz's words, Old Spice. So we'll see about that, but maybe not because they went to the immunity challenge and Jerry had a dilemma. He could either return to the hero's mat, in which he was expected to 48 hours after being voted out, but Jonathan gave him an option. He could also just stay with the villains tribe. He chose to go back to the heroes tribe. I think it's smart for him to do for now because it's just plain and simple. There's 10 people on that tribe versus 7 people on that tribe, excluding himself from each. So to not make more enemies, you go back to where you were and just resume your game. So I think that was smart on his part. Maybe he does return to play with the Spice Girls. We'll see. George tried to make a big pitch saying the alpha males burned him, but to no avail. And then I do want to talk about the immunity challenge. So the immunity challenge, I'm seeing this in US Survivor a few times. The one that I recall is Survivor China, season 15. And that was a very muddy challenge in which they did it. And yeah, it's just an iconic challenge in my mind. I love this challenge because you have the strategy of you want to push the ball to the goal, but you also have to try to stop the other team from pushing the ball towards their goal. So it's trying to manipulate the numbers so that you can get your ball closer at certain points than they can so that you get an advantage. So yeah, very much enjoyed it. However, the villains were just outclassed in this challenge like they have been in many challenges. They just don't have the strength on their side. Jordy and Simon are strong, but not strong enough to contend with the 4 or 5 hero males that are carrying them challenge to challenge that like we've seen. Yeah, and we get a little more with Jordy, a lot more with the Joker this episode. And he can see that Liz, Shawnee, and George are frustrated with Simon's leadership. And he knows that it's going to be hitting a crossroads. Does he want to continue working with Simon moving forward, building that friendship that they have, or does he want to work with the Spice Girls? And all the indications that we get is that Jordy wants to play both sides, so he's playing it by ear. And he pretty much decides that he's going to work with George and the girls. And yeah, it's a turning point in the game. He sees that Simon will probably go on to work with, come swap or come merge, work with the other alpha males in the Heroes tribe. and that would leave. That's not what Jordy wants to do. So it's they're meeting at crossroads. So I want to note there are some funny lines that came out of this episode that were, yeah, that could just be the episode names that were funny. Operation Anaconda, which was created by Stevie. Eject George out of the game. Strike while the iron's hot. Mango with between him and Simon means the mission's a go. Papaya means to abort. And let's just say that George played every single person like a fiddle. Yes, he outclassed every single player on this tribe in this episode, and it's not even close. There's a moment in this episode where George is still trying to sway Jordy to make this move. However, when Jordy approaches them, George says that this is your move. That is the type of language, using those specific words, this is your move, rather than saying this is our move or this is my move, that's the polish of a returning player and the polish of a player of his class. I mean, he is the king of Bankstown. What can you expect? And this was the blind side of the season that was coming. That's what was said by several people, but it's not the blind side that we all expected. And then we get to Tribal Council. Oh man, fireworks. Probably one of the best Tribal Councils, at least that Australian Survivor has ever seen, possibly even US Survivor has ever seen. It's just a masterclass by George. And I always wonder how they choose to seat the players come Tribal Council, because I would have expected George, or sorry, I would have expected Simon to be next to some of his constituents like Stevie, Jordy, or Fraser. However, he was right next to George, and the girls were in between all of that, so it made for a lot of camera angles just panning towards in frame being Simon on the left and George on the right, which was excellent. I very much enjoyed it. The Villains Tribe has been a pleasure to watch this season, and it's a lot because of what George and Simon have been bringing. And George mentions during Tribal, he knows what the plan is tonight. Plans to strengthen the tribe by voting off the weak. And Simon retorts by saying, "You can't vote yourself, mate." Wow. So most of the episode, at least on the beach, his plan was to make George feel like they're good, they need each other to move forward. But this Tribal Council, everything was pretty much laid out there. George was going for Simon was going for George. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just the way it was, and you gotta love that. To me, I haven't seen something like that since we've seen Survivor Ghost Island, US Survivor, where we had Dom on one side go against Chris Noble on the other side. Funny enough, they also started out on the same tribe. So, very, very similar situation in which we have one opposing force versus another opposing force. Only one's going to win. However, in this case, I'll get to it later on, they're both still in the game. Because Jonathan reveals that all of those castaways have a chance right then and right there to play for individual immunity. I love this. I believe it's been done in US Survivor before, maybe not a physical, I guess it wasn't a physical challenge, but a challenge like this during Tribal in which the players have a chance to save themselves. It's fun, it's unique. I like the twist. There's not much to it, and it just livens the game, because if someone wins immunity that was possibly on the chopping block, that changes what's going to go down, and that's exactly what happened. Simon pretty much got his ring of flint first easily. No one else even got it, and he built his fire and broke the rope, winning his first individual immunity challenge, which was brought up several times because he didn't make it to the merge the first time he played, so he never got that opportunity to do so. Did it this time around, and he's safe. So as we knew it, the plan at least was going to be 5 votes going on Simon, that being George, Liz, Shawnee, Jordy, and Fraser. and then possibly 2 votes going on George, that being Simon and Stevie. But now Simon won immunity, so now what's the plan? I don't know. It's during the challenge, we get wind of George changing the vote to Stevie, so he goes up to every single person in that 5 that was going to vote for Simon and says, vote for Stevie, vote for Stevie. He wants Simon to flush his idol. And that's just a precursor for what's about to go down the rest of the episode. So the votes, we pretty much see both sides grouping up, huddling. And we have the 4 boys and then the Spice Girls. And it seems like George is going to be copping the votes. But Jordy and Fraser go along with George's plan. Although it was unclear at the time if they would. And unclear to us is that, George, after pretty much when all the votes are being casted, once they're almost all done, Stevie steps up to vote, last one to vote, I believe. George pulls out his idol and makes quite the spectacle amongst the other castaways. And man, oh man, it's quite fun to see. And George plays everyone like a fiddle, like I've been reiterating. Wow. So essentially, he says he's going to play his idol and that Simon has the chance to play his idol to save Stevie. But how does George know about Simon's idol? Well, he throws Jordy under the bus, saying that Jordy let everyone know that Simon has an idol, which is true. Jordy pretty much says that he didn't see a path forward moving with Simon and that he wanted to play a different game than that. And yeah, revelations are made. George's plan to pin those 4 boys against each other is working marvelously. And so as far as we know, there's a few votes coming George's way, possibly enough to send him home. But he says he's going to use his idol. And from what we saw when the votes were being casted, Jordy voted Stevie. So the assumption is that Stevie's copping the rest of the votes. And George tells Simon, do not make the same mistakes you made the first time you played. You don't want to go home with idols in your pocket, do you? And he says, you have an opportunity right now to save Stevie. And Simon decides not to save Stevie. It was, I understand his perspective. He needs to get another day in the game. Maybe stuff will change. Tribal lines will change a bit. But wow. George pulls a fast one on him. So he plays his idol for himself. George receives 2 votes, those being Simon and Stevie's. They do not count. Stevie receives 2 votes, those being from Fraser and Jordy. Those do count. However, that is not enough to send Stevie home because 3 votes are needed to send someone home. And the Spice Girls, being Liz, Shawnee, and George, put all 3 of their votes onto Fraser, and Fraser has gone home. And now Stevie cannot trust Simon because Simon refused to play his idol for him, along with Jordy voting for Stevie. So you know what Stevie's going to do next episode and moving forward? Probably going to work with George and the Spice Girls. That's what's going to happen. And Jordy, how can he work with Simon moving forward? Because there was mistrust put in there by George in revealing that Jordy revealed to pretty much everyone that Simon has a hidden immunity idol. So wow, yeah, this was an explosive tribal council. George was the forefront of it. George is the forefront of the season. Why the season was made in the first place. Yeah, this is wow. I'm at a loss for words for the most part, honestly. There's a few other things that I want to note moving forward. We still have not got confirmation that Simon's idol is real or not, at least from what we've been seeing in each episode. Next to his name, they show George, they show his idol, just how it is. However, when they show Simon next to his name and his idol, there's a red X through it, which leads me to believe Alex pointed this out early on. I did not catch this. We had this on our first weekly recap, that the idol that Simon currently holds is not real. Now Simon does not know that, and it's gonna be quite the spectacle once that is revealed to be true. I'm pretty certain at this point in time that that is currently true. That it's not a hidden immunity idol. That it's won't work for anything. We'll see. Also, we're 7 episodes in. 6 new players have been voted out. No returning player has been voted out. Yes, I mentioned last episode Jackie was removed from the game due to injury. So as it stands, 6 new players voted out, 1 returning player removed from the game, which leads it to be currently on the Villains Tribe, 5 returning players, 1 new player, and on the Heroes Tribe, 5 returning players, 6 new players. So on the whole, we have 10 returning players as it currently stands with 7 new players. Yes, it's playing out exactly how we expected. In our preview, we noted anytime you put new players and returning players together in Survivor, the returning players always come out on top time and time again. Fans versus favorites 2, blood versus water. That's just the way it goes. So wow, yeah. We'll see what happens moving forward. It's gonna the Villains Tribe. They're down to 7 now, so I am a little worried. Or they're down to 6 rather. They're down to 6 because they did lose. They did lose Jerry as he returned to the Heroes Tribe, and there's 11 on the Heroes Tribe. I expect a swap. They can't really make challenges expecting 5 heroes to set out. That doesn't make sense too much. So there's going to be a swap coming soon. We have 17 castaways. We'll see, but this is exciting. The villains have carried this season. Hopefully the heroes step up, make this season more interesting from their perspective. Because right now, I'm hoping one of the villains win. We're pulling for the Spice Girls. I know Alex is too. Shawnee. We want Shawnee to win. But wow. So next episode, expect, unless we see something like this episode, what happened, what went down, expect my 5 favorite moments of the next episode. And then after that, we'll be doing a weekly recap with Alex about the 3rd episode of the week. So yeah, that will be episode 9. Expect that coming later in the week. And additionally, we will be doing our Survivor Season 44 draft. Oh man, that's exciting. So US Survivor is like 3 weeks out now. March 1st, a little less than 3 weeks. We'll be doing a draft and we'll be picking our teams. Last season, Alex picked the eventual winner being Gabler. So this season, I'll have the number 1 pick. So it'll be fun. Make sure to tune into that. Follow us or subscribe wherever you're listening on Spotify or YouTube. Like the video, give us a 5-star rating, and be sure to follow us at Plan Voodoo Pod on Twitter if you want to see our Survivor content there. We're very active on Twitter. So yeah, appreciate you guys for listening. This is Plan Voodoo, where split vote is not safe.